Hi, it's Elliot Allen with Criterion Planners. I need to perform a couple of tasks using SPARC and Index Online today. So join with me as I launch the tool and perform a couple of chores. First of all, SPARC runs on any internet browser. So you just need an internet connection and a browser and you're on your way. No ESRI ArcGIS software is required to access the tool. I've already bookmarked the instance that we're going to visit today. This is the Gulf Regional Planning Commission along the Mississippi Gulf Coast. The GRPC's membership includes 3 counties, 14 municipalities. The tool has a user management system where you can establish user accounts with tiers of privileges or open the site up to the public at large, whatever your preference is. Once you're in, the navigation is primarily with these buttons along the top bar. Maps, of course, being the primary product of the tool. There's pathways for downloading information from the site as well as uploading new information to it if you're an agency participating in a multi-party work group like a regional planning process that this instance covers. The tool can automatically repair problems with GIS data, so it improves data quality for folks that upload and transform their layers. The layers themselves can be managed along with what we call templates for interoperability, so that different databases from different sources with different classification schemes can be normalized to a common schema for a single process across a multi-jurisdiction region. And then, of course, here's Index Online, formerly a desktop tool. Index now is available as a feature of premium feature of SPARC. In terms of the map viewer, it functions very much like a typical web browser mapping tool, similar to Google. In fact, the base map choices you have include what you're looking at here is a hybrid of Google. You can use Google Streets or Google Satellite, also OpenStreetMap through MapQuest, and then a real simple basic background. So whatever your preference is. Now the 2 chores that I was going to quickly perform, one is to look at activity centers that have been identified in the area, walkable areas. I want to find out what portions of them might be deficient in transit service. This is the taxonomy of the GRPC's long-range sustainable growth plan. Take a look here in the land use folder. Here are the activity centers that I'm after, and they've just rendered in the dark green. Let me change to a lighter background. It's one of the benefits of having those different base maps. Come into the center of the region, the Gulfport Biloxi area, and then what I want to look at in relation to this is the transit service. We have the routes. You can see the route alignments here, but actually looking at the buffers or the quarter-mile walking distance around those routes is more explanatory. And you can see the remaining green areas are the ones that don't have access to transit. Let's render those separately so you can see if I turn off the base activity center area, the net result of the comparison is these areas. And in particular, the question has been raised about densifying this gap just west of Gulfport, and leads me into my second chore that I wanted to do today. But before I take a scenario and try to densify this area and see the effect that has on our indicators. I want to save what I've created here into the My Map section of the tool. I simply ask it to add a note to my map. And after I refresh the tool, the next time it opens up under the My Map folder, it's already automatically rendering the activity areas that need transit service. Let's turn to Index Online now and do that second task. So for our second task, let's go to Index Online. It's the scenario creator and evaluator that sits inside of SPARC. Formerly, Index was a desktop tool, but now we provide it exclusively as a premium feature of SPARC. So let's go to the operative regional sketches that the work group has been collaborating on. That's scenario 1, but I want to test my idea on a clone, and if it turns out to have merit based on the indicator results, I can always elevate it and share it with the rest of the work group. That one of those areas that we just saw was transit deficient in West Gulfport is this area you see here. It's currently designated to the horizon year of 2040 to build out in a suburban fashion. So let's see if we densify this and get a positive result in our key indicators. The tool has a full set of a couple of dozen indicators that it's calculating dynamically as scenarios are painted. But several key indicators in this tracker are kept in the right-hand pane, as you can quickly check the effect that your designations or your painting has on outcomes. So let's keep an eye on VMT. Right now it's at 23.75, and then transit coverage and transit stops per square mile is at 3.1. So we want to increase that number and at the same time decrease VMT. Go up to our palette. You can choose from a selection of area types, land use, character, depending on the objectives of your scenario. In this case, we want to densify with an activity center comparable to what's already in place on both sides of this gap. So I change to, I select that paint, I click on the traffic analysis zone or TAZ, and it takes on the attributes of activity center in terms of population and employment density and built environment characteristics. And as I do that, I would expect to see the VMT decrease and the transit coverage increase, and in fact those numbers are beginning to move down on the VMT side and up on the transit coverage side. Let me bring that up a couple more TAZs. So noticeable increase in transit coverage in response to the VMT happening in concert. Rather than keep densifying out here in the periphery, I believe there's a sensitive area in here. One of the tools sliders will allow me to take a look at that. I'm also going to select that layer and then make it more yeah, I did recall a water feature up in this part of the TAZ. So we're going to want to stay away from that as I finish this idea. Let me return my opacity back to where I was. I think the best we should do is perhaps an edge along the activity center, a transition between activity center densities and mixes and the more pure suburban ones you see out here. So let's lay in a couple of more TASs at those levels. And at the end of the day, an appreciable decrease in VMT and in tandem responsive transit service coverage. So we should be able to, at least in this instance, offer the group a worthwhile alternative to consider. That concludes the chores we're doing for today. Thanks for joining me. Look forward to seeing you again in the next SPARC Index online use case.